This call is now being recorded.
So what I was saying was, you had been in their shoes, you were living in that world, and you weren't happy, and then you made a change. So you made a huge move, and you started doing something entirely different as far as your career goes. So now you're living this really different life. So what ways do you continually learn about your audience and what they need and what they want at this point?
Yeah, I get that question because I am kind of removed from it. It's been several years or at least a few years since I was in their position. So it is really important to always kind of be on top of it. And the way I do that is just I listen to them, right? So I ask them questions and I actually talk to them. So I have a
Hmm.
Facebook group with about 2,000 members where we talk about travel and lifestyle design and building your own career and online business. And sometimes I actually come out and ask my members what they'd, prefer to hear about on my blog and in my newsletter. But more often I'll just read through the questions and the discussions that are happening in the group, right? Which is really helpful because it's a lot of social listening, but it's social listening of the people who are actually already part of my audience and who,
Right.
who are actually asking questions that are relevant to what I could be creating. And another way I do this is through email. So one of my earliest emails in my autoresponder sequence when somebody signs up for my newsletter is me just asking my tribe what they're struggling with and what they want to hear more about on Unsettle. And, just kind of what questions they have. And I get responses to this every day. I have, like hundreds, if not thousands of these responses in my folders, in my Gmail, and I shape my content from their responses. So I have conversations with them. I respond to follow-up questions to those emails. And, I even get on 15-minute Skype calls with them sometimes, especially earlier on. When I had more time for that, when I had a smaller list, but it's just really helpful to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I love that, obviously, as you said, you get busy and it's harder and harder to make those calls, but I love that you took the time to actually get on the phone with people and really like go through their pains and understand like what was going on, what they wanted to hear about. I think that's so smart. And it's something that a lot of people, especially if they consider themselves like an introvert, would be so afraid to do, but it's so important.
It is. It is. I was really scared to get on my first call, but I only had a list of like 60 people. I hadn't even launched Unsettle yet, so it was just a landing page at that point. And I sent out an email to the list of 60 people, a lot of which were my friends and family. And I just said, hey, like I'm giving away 15-minute free coaching sessions. And I phrased it like that. And I was like, I'd love to, chat with you about what you're struggling with this topic. And I got quite a few people who responded to the email. So I was able to get on, I think I scheduled 4 different 15-minute free coaching sessions where I definitely did bring my best coaching to them, but I was also getting so much from those conversations. And it was so scary to get on my first one because I'm not extroverted, but it was so worth it.
But that's brilliant. I mean, you position it as a thing where like they win, right? Because they're getting free coaching. Meanwhile, you're like getting all this insider info. So that's awesome.
And like
Um,
building an
and
amazing relationship with them.
right, yeah, something that I mean, then you can come back to that person and be like, "Cool, you said these things, you need this stuff. Now I'm offering all these amazing things." Um, and you mentioned something that I think is really important and really useful to people who haven't built an audience yet. So you mentioned that at the beginning, Unsettle was just a landing page. So you know you had a small list at that point, you had just a landing page. There wasn't really much, from the sound of it, there wasn't much of like a presence. So what were the strategies you used to get people to that site, to get people onto that list? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, so I will say it had a long runway. So I actually started my first blog in 2010, and Unsettled didn't launch until 2015 at the very, very beginning of the year. So it's only been live for about 2 years now. So my first blog was, I made a lot of mistakes, and it was not good, but it was a personal finance blog, and it was kind of I made tons of mistakes, and I definitely kind of ran it into the ground, but I learned a lot of lessons from that. Between when I shut that blog down and when I launched Unsettle, there was about 4 months where I literally made it my full-time job to learn. So I had a full-time job at the time, but I'd be cooking dinner and watching Derek Halpern videos. I'd be listening to Paul's podcasts while I, drove to work or was at the gym. I seriously everything I did was about learning like online marketing and things like that, because while I had done it, the internet looked a lot different. So I'll kind of
Mhm.
preface my spiel with that. But the way I got people to the website, so my first day, like the launch of Unsettle, brought in 3,267 visits, which was very
Awesome.
specific, and I remember because I was so excited about it. I kept on refreshing my stats. I was like, oh my God, amazing. So it was a pretty successful first day, but I did that because I've always been really into content marketing and, excuse me, and I'm kind of known for like kind of epic style articles. And
Right.
because I had those conversations with my audience before I launched, I was able to take their struggles that they had told me that they were struggling with and create really, really solid pieces of content. I think I had 3 of them when I launched. And I created them around those struggles. So my launch piece of content went crazy on Reddit. People like Chris Gillibo tweeted it out. Jeff Goins tweeted it out. And so it just kind of got picked up because I worked really hard on the content. So I spent a lot of time promoting that content, certainly, but it wouldn't have been so popular if it wasn't good to begin with, right? So,
Right.
so that was my strategy from the very, very beginning, which was just content marketing. So, writing things that were super useful for people. And then, growing my email list off of that. So I had a content upgrade in that first post, or that really, really popular post. And then from there, it just gets easier
Can
to get traffic.
I want to time out on that real quick, just because I want to make sure that I have the order correct. So you had basically the landing page, the pre-launch landing page, and what did that look like? Was it just like, this is going to be Unsettle, here's a sign up form? Was that pretty much it?
Yeah, it wasn't cute. It was. I think I used like a free, landing page launch page plugin.
Right.
So it had a countdown
Sure.
timer
Yeah.
to when I had set for my launch date. So it had a
Awesome.
countdown timer and this brief description with bullets of like, this website is for you if, and then there was 3 bullets underneath there. Just really identifying the target audience, and then just a simple email form. So just from that, and like sending out some tweets and Facebook posts and things like that, I was able to get 60 email subscribers before I launched, in the 4 months before I launched, as I built it.
Got it. Okay. So then it's launch day, and like you said, you had queued up like 3 posts. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like for the launch day. Okay. Okay. So then you launch, you've got these 3 posts, and it's those posts that you're distributing. So did you submit that to Reddit, or was it just the fact that like you were spreading the word by social media and someone else happened to put it on Reddit? How did that distribution work out?
You know what? I actually submitted it to Reddit, which I now know. I didn't know that much about, submitting to Reddit because I just used it to
The Reddit
read things.
rules, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I now know is a big no-no, but luckily the post was good enough that nobody downvoted me. I got, I think, 295 upvotes on that post in the
Amazing.
productivity forum or subreddit. So that drove a ton, but also, Twitter, Facebook, I really hit the ground running with promoting in, in all platforms I could think of, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you create amazing stuff, people won't be too mad if you, promote it. If you create crappy stuff and promote it, then people are going to be pissed off.
Then no one's gonna like it. You just have to, if you're gonna hustle, you just have to make sure that you did the work beforehand.
Exactly.
So you created the content from those first 3 posts from feedback that you had been getting in these coaching calls, which I think is so cool and so smart. So now let's fast forward to today. The site obviously is much different now than what it was when it was just a little landing page. So over time, you mentioned you started out with a content download. What was that one? And then is it the same one that is available now, or have you changed up your content download in the past, or I guess maybe a couple times over the past few years?
Yeah, so I have several and they're all available right now. So it initially wasn't like a site-wide opt-in offer. It was a like a scheduling worksheet, because my launch post was called The Insanely Simple 3-Step Guide to Killing Procrastination. So it really taught people how to schedule in their time. Yeah, so there's headlines too, so you need to like think of really good headlines. But
Right.
so it taught people how to schedule their time so that they maximize their productivity. And then I created a worksheet to help them schedule, and just like a few questions to help them do that. So that was really popular. So it was a content upgrade, and I only offered it on that blog post. But from there, I created a few different content upgrades that were site-wide available. So I had the course that you mentioned earlier, which was a free course to teach or to help people find their business idea, essentially, or their blog idea, or their niche, or whatever. I don't know if you say niche or niche, but I say niche because I'm Canadian.
I also say niche. I don't know the appropriate way to say it. It's fine.
It's a French word, so it's niche.
Right.
But,
thank you.
Pick your battles. So yeah, so then I had that course to, it was a 7-day course. People love free courses, so they signed up. It was an email course, so they signed up for that in droves, which was nice. And then I also had a couple of worksheets. Now I have a free video class. It's like a no sales video class where I just teach people how to be more productive with their, if they have a full-time job and they're trying to build an online business or a blog, how they can do that and maximize the time that they do have. So I do have a lot of different opt-in offers and content upgrades on my site, probably dozens if you count all the content upgrades, because
Sure.
those are really useful for driving email subscribers too. But they evolve just because I keep on listening to people and listening to what they need.
Yeah. And you mentioned, you've got all these different downloads, right? So how many different, and maybe there's 1,000 of these too, I'm not sure. How many different drip campaigns have you set up? Do you have different ones for different purposes, different drips that promote different products? Like, what's that look like on the back end?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I only know this because I just switched from Aweber to ConvertKit like 2 weeks ago. So I have 14 different drips.
Nice.
It sounds really complicated, but it's not, I promise. So essentially, I have one main autoresponder sequence that pretty much everyone, after they go through the initial drip that they signed up for, will go through the autoresponder sequence. That's the same for almost everybody, but the different drip sequences, for instance, like I'll have one. So I had the Unsettled Challenge, which was a paid product. It was sort of like a tripwire, and it still is. I don't think I promote it very much anymore, but it was $30, and you got like a new challenge every day for 30 days. And the idea behind it was, like incremental gains and incremental improvements every day really improve your life a lot over the course of a month. So that is its own, drip sequence that releases an email every day for a month. And then I've got the course, which releases an email every day for a week. And so there's a whole bunch of them. There's 14, but they all go through the same autoresponder after they go through the initial one.
Okay, cool. So everyone gets the same autoresponder. Got that. Even if the beginning, even if you've got 14 different ones running. So at the end of things, and I asked this because I kind of wanted to see how you were running things. A while ago, I did sign up for that one course. So ultimately, like once the drip ends, once the person has received the last auto email, then what happens? Like, are there any like final are there any like final products that you try to pitch people, or do you email people like a certain time every week or month with like a new post update? How do you decide like what content to send out to your list regularly after all the drips?
Yeah, absolutely. So the autoresponder sequence doesn't really end in that I always try to add new content to it. I'm not very quick at that, so every couple of months I'll add a new autoresponder email. So I'll keep on building that until it's like 100 emails. But
right, it goes for months.
yeah, it goes for months and months, and people get like content for a year. But I do send out emails when I have a new article, because my articles all go to one specific purpose, which is to grow my email list even more and or promote whatever I'm doing at the time. But most of them are just,
Mhm.
like it's content marketing, it's providing value. So I'll send out an email when I have a new blog post. And then I'll always have a call to action at the end of that email, like share this on Facebook. It's usually share it on Facebook because Facebook is, stats and statistics and the numbers show that Facebook is the most effective for marketing. So I get my audience, if they like, of course, the post, I'll get them to share it on Facebook, and therefore it just drives a little bit more traffic. Their friends and family, sign up for my email list, and then I'm able to communicate with them and build a relationship with them as well. So yeah, I always send out on content because content is really my bread and butter. I don't really have a product. I offer, coaching and things like that, although I'm at capacity right now, so often I'll have to close it. But my products are like still, I did have a beta course that was in beta and it's still in progress right now, so I haven't released it to the public yet. When I do, and when I do have that sort of sales funnel, I'll just integrate, because all of my emails, I mean to provide a lot of value in them. So I'll integrate those, those sales emails into the email funnel, so they'll be evergreen, so I don't have to keep on launching.
Selling over and over and over.
Yeah, which is a great strategy, but I just don't have the energy for it.
Right. So, clearly you've got content marketing on lock. I'd be interested to know, and as much as you're willing to share, what challenges have you faced in getting all this set up? Or, have you ever created something that you thought your audience would really love, but maybe that flopped? What have the struggles been?
I feel like I do this regularly with content because as a writer or content marketer, at least 50% of the stuff I publish ends up flopping, even if I thought it would be really useful for my audience. So yeah, a lot of things flop. So one thing content in general, the purpose of content marketing is to market something, right? So whether
Right.
that's like, if it's affiliate products, if it's your own products, a service, something like that. So if the content flops, then your marketing effort flopped.
Right.
But I think it's just like volatile. So it can be really difficult. So even if you know the struggles that your audience is, looking for information on and that they need answers to, it still can be difficult to sell them on the solution that you have. Because I think, like we were talking about via email, I built my list predominantly at the very beginning anyway. Now it kind of, builds by itself with social proof and stuff. But at the beginning, I built my list on republishing and guest posting. But that's a lot of work. So to say, if my audience is looking for information on how to grow an email list, and I have to sell them on this like concept of working for 30 hours to, get 500 email subscribers, they're gonna be like, oh, that's a lot of work. And so it's hard to like, sometimes, even though their struggles, it's hard to sell them the solution.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like it's really difficult to, not only because you don't want to, like just give them the silver bullet because there's no such thing, and you want to be ethical and give them the most effective ways to do something. And it's just sometimes a little bit difficult to really, foresee their reactions or their, I guess, willingness to take your methods that work, but maybe aren't as glamorous as a silver bullet. So yeah, as far as flopping, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And I guess this is subjective because everyone would do this differently, but how do you get past that? Or like, what have you learned from that?
So I actually really get past it by, first of all, I recognize that there are, the vast majority of people want the easy way out. But I don't want to sell them an easy way out because that's not ethical, it's not honest, and it's not the way that they need to be doing things. So even if 97% of people want the easy way out and they won't listen to a word I say because I'm not selling them the easy way out, 3% of people will definitely do what I'm telling them to do, and they're willing to put in the work. And those 3% are the reason why I do what I do, right?
Right.
So I do have like a folder called Smiles, and when people send me screenshots of things that they've done when they followed my advice and it's worked for them, I put that in the smiles folder. So if I'm ever like, oh, I can't believe this flopped so bad, I can go back and kind of see what other people have done that, that's worked for them that I've told them to do. Also, I call my audience out a lot on things because sometimes, like, I'm not afraid to do that, and that's just my personality. But sometimes I recognize that, like, when I'm reading something, okay, let's say I want to lose 10 pounds. But the only way you can lose 10 pounds is get off your butt and start eating less and more healthfully, right?
Right.
So I might not want to do that. I might want to take a pill. But I know that the only thing that's going to work is to get off my butt and start eating less. Put away the cake, right? So I just kind of like, I think that if somebody was to call me out on the fact that, like, you know, there is no silver bullet, get off your butt, put away the cake. And if they were to be really frank with me and honest with me, I'm going to respond a lot better. And I'm going to be like, you know what, I know this is true, so I'm just going to put this cake away now, or throw it away or whatever. So I'm not afraid to, like, call my audience out and be like, look, like, I know you don't want to hear this. I know you don't want to, you know, put in 30 hours to maybe get 500 email subscribers and then you have to, like, sell them something to make any money. I know you don't want to do it, but you know what? This is the only way to do it to actually, like, ensure your success. So
Right.
I'm not afraid to do that.
Yeah, you're not selling a fake dream. Like, okay, you can work 4 hours a week in the beginning before you've automated anything, before you've set it up, and you'll be fine. Like, that
Good
doesn't
luck with
exist.
that. Exactly.
Right. Maybe years down the line when you're like, when you've outsourced everything, but not in the beginning.
But for now, have fun in your fairy tale land.
So I've read various posts by you that are about, like, as you advise, the things that you write about for your audience, like habits to stay super productive, or like different tricks that you use. What are some of the, maybe, like, top 2 or 3 of those that you would advise to someone who's really, really struggling to stay, like, I guess, who's really struggling to stay on track with this? Maybe it is that they have a full-time job. Maybe it's that they're just so overwhelmed, like they don't know which thing to focus on.
Yeah, I would say, like, so my biggest thing is when I get like that, because we all do, right? I'm not pretending that I don't. So I think a lot of the material that I come out with is because I'm like, oh my God, I need to write about this because, you know, I struggle with it too.
I'm struggling, yeah.
Exactly. So when I get like that, where I'm like so overwhelmed and I'm like, oh, there's this, and I could do Facebook ads, and I could do Facebook marketing, and then I could do Instagram marketing, and maybe I'll, you know, sponsor this blogger and whatever, like, you have like this shiny object syndrome, is really just like cut back on everything and focus on one thing. Because if you take everything, you know, 25% of the way, I think one of the quotes I say the most on my blog and, you know, conversations with my clients is, if you chase 2 rabbits at once, you'll catch neither of them. And it's a Native American quote that I love because it's so true. So if you try to, like, take 2 projects or 2 marketing channels, you know, and you try to, like, master them both, you're not going to master either of them because you're taking them both halfway, if that, right?
Right.
So I just, like, you know, focus on one thing, and then I set a goal for that one thing, and then everything that comes up, if I'm like, oh, but, you know, there's this podcast on how to use SlideShare, it's like, well, is that going to help me with my goal for this one platform? So, like, for instance, is SlideShare really going to help me reach more people with content marketing? Probably not, because, you know, all you got to do for that is sit down and write and make it great and push it, right? So,
yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind. It's hard. So I have little reminders. Sometimes I'll have, like, an iPhone reminder if I'm working on a really important project related to my one thing, that'll pop up and be like, are you having shiny object syndrome? Or it'll say, like, stop being the dog from Up, because, you know, he was like squirrel all the time. And so, you know, you got to remind yourself. But also having an accountability partner is so useful. I found it, like, incredibly useful. And, you know, just, like, telling those people your goals and making sure that they stay on top of you and you stay on top of them, because it's really hard to be accountable to ourselves.
Yeah. The shiny object syndrome, that struggle is so real.
I know. So another thing is, like, I was talking to Kyle Eschenroder from Startup Bros, and he was saying that he does these things where they're like weeks. I think he calls them isolation weeks, where he doesn't take on any new like information at all. So he doesn't listen to podcasts. He doesn't watch TV. He doesn't even read books. He literally just creates from the knowledge that he already has. I think we just take in too much information, really. It's like information overload, right?
Yeah.
And so that gives us that shiny object syndrome like no other.
Right. Where the more useful thing to do would be to be like, okay, this project is super cool and useful, but right now I'm doing these other things. So I'll file it away. I'll deal with it in the future. But I think that whole idea is great. The idea of like cutting yourself off from taking in new information for a while so that you can just create some forward motion, versus feeling like fake productive because you've been reading a bunch. Yeah, I think that's super smart. I want to take a second to time out, and ask real quick, the title of our meeting on the calendar is 60 minutes, but I screwed up when I was creating that Calendly event and I didn't change the duration. So the duration was only 30 minutes. So I want to make sure that like you don't have a call scheduled or anything right now that I'm holding you up from.
No.
So
no,
are we good? We're okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that till afterward, obviously, and I was like, crap.
No
but okay,
problem.
great. Let's see. There was something related to that. So it was staying consistent. This is another thing that I'm sure you've probably heard people ask about. I've heard people ask about as well. So in creating content, initially the idea is to create content that really, really resonates with your audience so that they're going to read it, they're going to share it, they're going to sign up for it. But then so many people get tripped up by the whole concept of like SEO. So do you put in effort to like optimize previous posts with like different keywords, or is that part of your strategy, or is that something that hasn't really been that much of a priority for you?
So I'll answer that in 1 second. What I will say about SEO when people get tripped up and stop creating useful content because they're too focused on keywords is that who is really searching for those keywords? Like human beings are, right? So still create amazing content and then, and then focus on SEO, but make that amazing content, because if somebody clicks on, even if you're ranking in the first page of Google for a crazy popular search term, if somebody clicks on your blog and sees a piece of content that sucks because you were too focused on chasing a keyword and backlinks from potentially shady sources,
right?
They're not going to stay, and then all that effort is going to be wasted. So that's my little soapbox. I'm embarrassed to say that
100% agree.
SEO has never. Yeah, I think it's really important to just like address that. But I am embarrassed to say that SEO has never been my jam. I mean, I'm a content marketer, and content marketing and SEO go hand in hand. But I've learned a ton about it over the past several months. So I'm actually doing a content audit right now with all of my site content, updating it for, content upgrades, search engine optimization, things like that. I don't think that you should create content outside of, like what you really want to create just because there's a keyword that ranks really well and has low competition on it. Because like if you're not creating the content that, first of all, your actual audience really like, traffic is just a vanity metric essentially, right?
Yeah.
So if you're creating content that your audience doesn't really want, then you're and you're, even if you rank for that, you're attracting people who aren't part of your target audience, and those people aren't going to be, those raving fans that everyone wants. It's a vanity metric because it's what those people do on your site that counts. Do they sign up for your email list? Do they buy your products? Like, are they engaging with you? Right? So,
yeah. And I mean, we're so in agreement about this, and we both like feel a lot of ways in relation to it.
It's all the feelings.
Because also, yeah, if you're doing all this searching for like the perfect SEO, the perfect keywords, you might find out that like those keywords that have like the lowest competition are super like weird and boring. And then and then you're not even going to be excited about writing about them. And so it's this, basically I'm spending too long talking because I should be asking the questions, but I totally agree with you on that.
I just want to give like a little bit of an example from my like actual blog.
Yeah, please do.
So,
that would be so helpful.
I wrote this, so I'm pretty good at picking domain names, right? So like Unsubtle, people love. I get a lot of like, how did you think of that? I've had I pick really great domain names just because I have a process. So I wrote about this process. So I wrote this like big long article, on how to pick a domain name that you don't hate, that's really, shareable, and that's just a great domain name. So I wrote this article and I posted it. A couple months later, I realized that because I do mention where to buy the domain name, and then what you need to do after you have your domain name, you need hosting and stuff like that. So have an affiliate, a couple affiliate links in there. A couple months later, I realized that, there was, I think I was doing keyword research for a client or something like that. And I realized that there was a keyword that had a decent amount of searches. That was how to choose a domain name. So I optimized the content for that. It was already up there. It was fine. I didn't have to change any of the content. I optimized it for it, and it was really good content. I now have, 50 people a day coming to my website with that keyword, because I haven't really spent much time doing any backlinking to it. But let's say 50 people a day that are searching for that keyword that end up on my website. But the people who actually, buy and who I have a content upgrade there too. The people who actually buy my affiliate products and things like that from that article are the people who are already familiar with me, and if we're reading it from my newsletter or from my social media that I'm promoting it on. So it's just those people that I already recognize, that were already part of my audience, right? Because I built a relationship with them. So there's a little bit of a spiel about that.
That's so interesting. So you saw a traffic lift from optimizing it. But like you said, in the end, it ended up really being nothing more than a vanity metric. It didn't impact your bottom line in a real useful way.
No, I mean, I'm sure every once in a while I might get an affiliate commission from a search engine term, but those people that do that are probably already part of my target audience. So they also probably sign up for my email list and are engaging with me in another way, right? So I didn't really, traffic I pay no attention to. I look at my Google Analytics maybe once every 2 months, and my ConvertKit stats every hour. So
this will be a totally different conversation, but I'm always really interested to know why people choose the email platform they choose, whether it's MailChimp or ConvertKit or Aweber. But that's for a whole different talk, because they all seem to have their different pros and cons.
I honestly think it's just the people that you which ones do they use, right?
Right, so. Right. Who in your circle is using what? You're probably just going to end up going with what they use.
Exactly.
So we've covered a ton of stuff that I think is super useful on a lot of levels. One, it's really actionable stuff, and two, you've given a couple examples of things that no one else has really come out and said. This whole idea of traffic not being that valuable being a perfect example. So I think I have one last question, and after that, if there's anything else that you think we've missed, please feel free to jump in on that as well. But for now, so there are a million productivity, build your list type of publications out there. So how do you put your own unique spin on the content that you create? How do you inject your personality into it while still obviously making it really, really useful?
Yeah, I think I'm really strong with this. So I try to create content in such a way that makes my audience feel like they're a friend. So when I'm writing, especially at first, when it didn't come as as naturally as it does now, I wrote as if I'm writing to a friend that I'm helping that asked those questions. And I was at the advantage because a lot of people were asking me those questions from my real personal life. So they were, asking well, how do you actually get clients if you're a freelancer, if you really love to write, how do you do that? And so I can write as if I'm writing to a friend. I'm a big proponent of not being too stiff or formal unless your niche expects it. If you're in law or something like that, then you can write you're a textbook, but you're not a textbook. So people connect with humans and not robots. So if I wouldn't say it out loud, then I won't put it in my writing. But if I wouldn't say a sentence without a sarcastic comment, then I'll put the sarcastic comment in there because I'm a sarcastic in person. So I think your personality has to trickle through to your writing. And if you send an article or something like that to a friend and ask them if it sounds like you and they say no, that's a huge problem. It should be I feel like you were talking just to me. So I really just, I make silly jokes or call my readers out on something. And I put stupid like memes and GIFs and stuff like that in my writing just because like that's how I am in real life, right? And I have this thing about unicorns and rainbows. So, and it's like sarcasm thing. Don't worry. It's not like I actually, whatever, believe they exist. But yeah, so like, I'm like, I just make stupid jokes all the time. So essentially like if I would talk about it or, make a sarcastic comment in a conversation about the topic with friends, then I'll do it in my articles too. So putting your personality into it, I think is huge. And that's how you stand out as well. So, I mean, there's going to be certain, like I'm going to use, for instance, like Paul is very, very different from, for instance, like a Derek Halpern, right?
Right. Right.
Some people are going to be
100%.
more attracted to Paul's approach, and some people are going to be far more attracted to Derek Halpern's approach, right? Derek's kind of like in your face, and Paul's like, creative and maybe a little bit less, just shouting at you.
Paul's like the ultimate chill. Like
yeah, exactly. He's like laid back, and he's like everyone's friend, whereas Derek Halpern's like everyone's like really mean coach.
Yeah, well said.
Right? And kind of like Gary Vee is very different from like a Marie Forleo. So like people are gonna resonate with different personalities, and I don't think you need to be completely like, I mean, what works. Like you're not gonna come up with something that doesn't, like you're not, I don't know. List building tactics and strategies, they work across the board. Content upgrades always work, right? Guest posting, it works. That's why everyone talks about it. It's how you talk about it and, the way you approach it that really resonates with people. So just be yourself, I think.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. And I think one thing that's super useful is the idea of like, would I say this in real life? Because that helps you get past being too stiff in your writing, but it also keeps you from being like too overly cheesy, because there are certain things that I read that I'll have written, and this is like going back to my writing from years ago, all of which is like shut down because I don't want anyone to see it. But like there's stuff that I'll read from that's so like over the top, trying really hard to be like personable and to be friendly, and I'm like, I don't like that, like goofy. So almost, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just a matter of like, if someone's anxious about showing their personality, it just comes down to like, write your post and then read it out loud. Like, would you say this or would you not say this?
Exactly. And I think it's like, show your personality. Don't show somebody else's personality, right? Like just because somebody else is goofy and you're not goofy doesn't mean that you have to be goofy in your post because you think that, their writing style is popular. Like my favorite blogger, hands down in the world, is James Clear. He's amazing. He writes amazing stuff. He's not sarcastic. He's not goofy. He doesn't crack jokes in his posts. He's just very like, clear, and like that's completely fine. That's his personality, and that's why it works, right? So just be you and don't try to be somebody else just because you like their style. And you don't have to be theatrical if you're not theatrical, because people can see right through that, right?
Yeah, totally agree. Let's see, anything else that I guess you might want to include? I think I've gotten so much awesome information from this conversation. I'm really excited to put this like into a story. So this on my end has been super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that like when you're doing anything, like, okay, so for instance, when you're trying to inject your own personality into an article, just like practice makes perfect, or not even perfect, but practice makes you competent. So don't beat yourself up if you suck at first, right? And then like if something really resonates with your audience, do that again, right? So find what works and do more of it, and test things out, and don't be afraid to fail, even publicly, because we all do it, and it makes for a great story later on.
Yeah, I think you're totally right about that. And also you can go back and edit stuff. Like it's not a big deal.
Exactly. Content audit, right?
Content audit for the win. Sarah, I'm so on your day to connect, and it's really nice to just get to meet you one-on-one. I mean, I like what you do. It's cool to hear you like Calendly, and I really put stuff going on.
Hello, Claire.
Oh, as
there we
soon
go.
as I
I
stopped
can hear you
talking, I lost. I don't know if you heard it. I don't know where you stopped hearing me again.
now. I think it was when you said, and it's great to hear that you like Calendly, and then you stopped.
Oh, and then yeah, I guess after that, it wasn't anything like life changing. It was just I'm so grateful to have gotten to connect. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome talking to you. It was kind of like a fun conversation.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a great end of the week and weekend. If you have any questions about this, or want to follow up on anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, wishing you all the best.
Definitely. You too. Thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you.
All right,
Okay.
take care. Bye.
Bye.